Hey, family, it's your sister Jocelyn here, and welcome to another episode of Faith on the Journey. If this is your first time tuning in, we welcome you. We are so glad that you are here and want you to know that we're committed to helping you strengthen your faith, heal your heart, and discover a sense of community. And we do so through a variety of ways by connecting you with a team of Christian counselors and offering trauma healing groups across the country. You can learn about these resources and so much more by visiting our website at faithonthejourney.org. Again, that is faithonthejourney.org. Now, today we're welcoming a woman of God who has a new book, A Purpose in Helping People on Their Healing Journey, that she's going to talk about today. But she also has a powerful testimony that she's going to share. Brenda Seefeldt is a pastor, speaker, wife, and mother for four men with their own brave stories. Brenda has written this helpful book called I Wish I Could Take Away Your Pain. And so we're so grateful to have her here with us today. Welcome, Brenda.
Good to be here with you. But we were already talking and for so long to set this up. It's just like we're already chatty with each other. So,
Yeah.
everybody else, welcome into our conversation we've been having already.
Yes, welcome into the fold.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Brenda. Well, thank you for accepting the invitation. And I look forward to you sharing your testimony with our audience. So let's actually start there because there's a story before the book that you wrote. And so tell us about your background as a believer and your testimony of pain and working through your healing.
I have just turned 60, which is crazy, crazy. I became a Christian when I was 15. And so I've just been reflecting on these 45 years here, what God has done. Something um, it was for me, a black and white experience when I came to know Jesus. And I have been making a lifelong now of brave decision from brave decision to brave decision. Once I recognized the value that Jesus saw in me, which happened back in 1978, I've been making these brave decisions. So I went into the ministry when I was 18 years old. I have been serving in a church ministry as a youth pastor ever since. In the 80s, I was, a woman in the ministry. That's a brave decision, but I had a lot of favor with men in the church, while I've also been hurt by men in the church. And I've just continued to make these brave decisions, and I have just continued to serve in the ministry. In 2020, that was a big disruptive year. I went from being a youth pastor to a pastor. I pastor now this church called Larger Story Church, and we're trying to do church uniquely because the pandemic changed us. And so I decided to take to with the lead of some of the parents of my teens, and that really meant a lot to me because again, teens are my heart. That hasn't changed. Anyway, so we're doing this church. It's pretty awesome. But the greater part of my story, probably the biggest, bravest decision I made besides going into the ministry was becoming a mom to these boys. These boys have shaped me and grown me as much as God did on that day I became a Christian when I was 15 years old. And it doesn't count the fact that my ordination was a great day. When I got married was a great day. But these boys have been the greatest part of my story. And it's a long story, but the short of it is I was, again, as a youth pastor, met these boys. They were not church kids. They were not church going kids, but we met. They made a connection with me in such a way that I noticed it. And when you're used to making brave decisions like this, you notice when God is moving, when God is saying, go in this direction. So I went in this direction, having no idea what I was doing because I was single. I spent a lot of my time on the drug corner with these boys, and I just was. But they came to know Jesus, and they started coming to church with me, and we were just forming something here. But I was a pastor. And over time, God started telling me these boys don't need a pastor, they need a parent. And at this, I should also say, I already knew at this point in my life, I was infertile. I wasn't going to have children. And not to belittle anybody going through that trial in your life right now, but this was something God told me when I was very young. So it never smashed my heart as other things have in my life. This story in my life didn't. So I was never thought I was going to be a mom. But these boys, so probably this is the greatest moment when I decided to get married, and the boys had met John, my husband, and I was pretty excited because I made this, again, another brave decision to get married, and it was later in life. My boys pulled me aside and said, oh, this is the exact words, "We like John and all, but we'll think he'll be like every stepfather and take you away from us." And that's when I got the confirmation that I needed to do something different with these boys, and we needed to raise them. And so, which I've been doing. It's been over 30 years now. These boys have been a part of my life for over 30 years. We're long into this. I've got 6 practically perfect grandchildren that are just the joy of my life. And considering I've had the grandchildren since they were babies, this is such a whole new thing for me. I mean, unlike my boys, my grandchildren know from the moment they were born that they were wanted and loved, and they know the name of Jesus, and we're just long into the story. But I would say between, just I say the men in the church who have hurt me and my boys we've been, overcoming a lot together. My life has been smashed down many times, and I will honestly say it's the people that have been in my life that have helped me get up again. Um, and that's where my book has come. This is my book. It's called "I Wish I Could Take Away Your Pain," because I've had people step in with me in these smash heart seasons when I feel like earlier in the 80s and 90s when I felt like God had just abandoned me, and like, what, God, I've been serving you. I I had this presupposition that I should be protected from such devastating pain. And especially in the early 80s, I was so blessed with so much favor from leadership and from the men in the church. I was so much favor to be hurt by the men in the church was like, God, you're supposed to be protecting me from this. And when you just, then you blame God and you get angry at God and you feel like, God has abandoned you. It has been the people that have come alongside me that have helped me to see who God is again. And that's who this book is dedicated to. And these are the people who have surrounded my life consistently. They're not the same, but they've been the consistent ones in my life. And what this book is about is what they have done to help me.
And let me back up a little bit because there's so
Yes.
much to your story, and we can actually talk about your book, but more so the lessons of, that can come from your book. First, what helped you, in addition to community, to heal from some of the painful events you mentioned? Being a woman in ministry, I know all about that life. It is not
Yes.
easy, and so some of the pain that you experience with that, being a mother, and then other parts of your journey. I'm sure we don't even know the half that's been difficult for you. What were some of the key things outside of community that helped you to move forward on your healing journey?
There's a very key moment that came into my life in 1990. And I learned the story of Jacob wrestling with God. This is in Genesis 32. And this story is very key for me. And this is going to answer your question. But when Jacob was wrestling with God, there's a whole lot thought about that, but I was having all kinds of doubts and uncertainties. And God, how could you let this happen to me? Again, this supposed to that I believed I was protected from. And it says in that Bible that when it became dawn and Jacob realized it was God who he was wrestling with, Jacob held even firmer and said, I will not let you go until you bless me. And I think some too many of us Christians would be like, "Oh my goodness, God, that was you? Oh, I didn't know it was you. Let me dust you off. Let me pick you up. I'm so sorry I got you dirty. I'm so sorry I didn't sit still and wait and trust in you." But really what Jacob did is he held him down and said, "I will not let you go until you bless me." And it was in that moment I decided I need to know that I am following God, that God is for me, even though my presuppositions didn't work out, that God is for me. And I wrestled and I dug in there. And once I figured that out, that changed my perspective on so much of my life, and I started making even braver decisions. Because once you know God like that, you can make these brave decisions, and they're full of vulnerability, but you just know God is never going to abandon you because He never did.
He hasn't. He hasn't. And that's very true, even if it doesn't feel like it sometimes. And
Mhm. Yes.
Brenda, I noticed you use the word brave intentionally quite a bit.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it sounds like that is connected to the work that you do. And so what does brave mean to you? Why is that word so important to you?
It's something I've been recognizing later on in my life here that I just started making these brave decisions early in my life. But so I've come up with my own definition, and I define bravery as your decisions to actually trust God. That is full of vulnerability because with God, there is not the guarantee of the controlled outcome that you want. But you make the decision anyway because you trust God for the larger story, which just happens to be the name of my church, which is Larger Story.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And with that, I saw how you associated what some might seem as not as significant steps as still being a brave step. So, like, I guess what's the litmus to determining what is brave? Is there really one?
You notice God pulling your attention towards something, and you start noticing this, and then you start praying about it, and you start pondering it, and all of a sudden you feel like, "I've gotta make this decision," and you feel a lot of tension in this. I call this holy tension because it is tension, it is uncomfortable, and we want to go back to the way it was before we knew about this circumstance or before God broke our heart over this something, whatever it is. But we stay in that tension and we figure out what God is doing and we figure out what brave decision needs to be made, something holy is going to happen. So that's why I call it holy tension. And then you get to the holy tension and you make the brave decision and you just go in and you just got to trust God for the rest.
Yeah, I think that there's something powerful about that because sometimes we are afraid to make a decision or make a move out of fear of it, either as you mentioned, I believe, it not working out the way we desire. We have something in mind and it might go in a different direction, therefore giving up control. So that's
Oh, yeah.
huge. And I think
Yeah.
also fear of making a mistake. And so for you, what has helped you to grow into a woman who makes brave decisions? And were you always there? And what kind of was the transition?
I think I was always there. I mean, like I said, I got saved when I was 15. And by the time I was senior in high school, I was already leading a Bible study at lunchtime at my high school. So I just saw the need, I felt the need. I could do it. I did it. So this was always my heart bent. But I say it's not always turned out well. I mean, I've had some decisions that have, just like I said, just smashed my heart. But also realize that that doesn't define me. Eugene Peterson said, "A life of faith is one of long obedience." It's just going forward and going forward and going forward, and if it didn't work out, going forward and changing it. But when these brave decisions have that holy tension in it, there is this extra, I say blessing, but maybe more excitement. I mean, I can't say my faith is not safe. My faith leads me into heartbreak sometimes, but I will take that chance of a heartbreak over a safe faith every time.
That is deep. That is deep. My faith is not safe. What? Because some of us much rather stay in the boat, much rather play it safe, much rather take the walk versus swing when we're playing baseball. We much rather do that. And for me, that hit home because I think there's something in us. I can't speak for you, but even for me, safety is something that we can value and we can hold on to. We want security. But what does that hold us back from experiencing in life?
Yeah, yeah, and it's the more you experience God's faithfulness, the more you trust God, and so the more you do this. Psalm 34:18 is the verse, "God is close to the brokenhearted," and that's a very good verse, it fits really great, it's a great platitude on a pillow, I've come to learn is that the more I'm not afraid in my broken heart, God is close to me.
Mhm.
And if I know God is close to me, I can make that brave decision no matter what the outcome is.
That's good. That's good. Yes. And so with this bravery and with you making moves along the way, you had some bruises and some scars that
Yeah.
kept you through. And you eventually got to a place where you said community played an essential part in helping you to heal, which led you to write your book, I Wish I Could Take Your Pain Away. So let's talk about some of the main lessons and highlights from your book.
So the big one, and my book is only 28 pages, and it's full of doodles. I'm gonna say it's like I said, it's very small, and it's got doodles in it. Um, so it's just very practical as well as biographical, with what I learned, because some people don't know how to deal with your pain, and so they will do things what I call drive-by prayers or platitudes, and it's mostly done with good intentions. But what they have just done in that very moment is they have said, "I can't deal with your pain, so I'm going to remove myself from it." So so say my story, my life involves prison. Well, my boys are my boys. 2 of them didn't make the supposed to that I'd hoped for them, which was they had a chance of a different future, and 2 of them ended up in prison anyway. So when I share this story, again, I remember I'm a pastor. When I share that story, I can see on people's faces that they just cannot deal with prison in their own lives. And again, that may be for many, many good intentional reasons. But I can tell on their face that when they say, "Oh, I'm going to pray for you," I know they may once, but they just remove themselves from my pain and they're not my people. You know, or a platitude, when they say, I hear, yeah, again, it's a difficult conversation, and I trusted them with it, by the way, and they say, "Oh, well, God's going to work everything out for His own good." I know they don't know what to say, but what they did there is just remove themselves from my pain, and they're not my people. And so my book is about that. I have 3 pages of like what not to do. That is the value of the book, by the way. And it's just bringing this to highlight so that I look for people in advance because my life is not done. I'm still in the ministry. I'm still prison's part of my life still. So when I meet people, I look for these people, and if I see them, they're on my list. And then when something happens again, and I'm right now, it's been a really good, happy season for me, and it's pretty good for about a year here. um, they're just on my list. But I know that moment when something's going to happen again, these are my people. And they're going to hear me. They're going to let me be in my pain. And they're going to also carry my pain so that I don't have to be so overwhelmed with it. And I've also learned that pain is temporary. It's always going to come to an end. And that these people who I have literally offloaded it to are going to carry it and not remove themselves from it. And that's all I need to know I mean, there will be a day I cannot get out of bed again because of something that happens. But I can rest in that bed and not feel like, "Oh my goodness, how the shame of that I don't trust God enough," or the shame that, I'm a pastor and I should be getting back to my church work. I just need this day to shut down. And I know I got people praying for me and interceding for me in my behalf so that I can have that shutdown so I can get up tomorrow just a bit stronger because of these people who I found.
Wow, amen. Yes, Brenda. And I think there's tremendous value in what you shared in terms of well-intentioned people, associates, friends, even clergy who really don't know what to say when it comes to holding us in our pain. It's uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
they might say what they've been taught to say, which in church oftentimes is the platitudes. And so I know your book probably speaks to this, but what are some things that someone, if they came across an individual in their life who's in pain, instead of necessarily hitting them with the platitude, is there any words of advice in terms of how they might approach the situation to make sure that the individual who's in pain doesn't feel devalued or saying, "Okay, I can't talk to you as it relates to what I'm dealing with?"
It's a lot of it's your face. Just keeping your face in tune with mine and not so shocked
Mm.
that you have to say something, because sometimes you just can't say something. And trust me, I am okay with that, and I believe other people who when I've ministered as a pastor are okay with it when I just don't have an answer to for them, but I can just sit in that silence and say, "Me too." That gives me such a gift. I see it in their face. I see it in the next day when somebody may follow up and respond with me and say, "Is anything I can pray for you today?" Which is that there's that statement again, but see, it's the next day. I have not scared them away. They've decided to come into my pain and help me carry it by saying that. That is the greatest gift. So you got the holy tension here again of maybe not saying anything or just saying me too or I understand, which does not feel like enough, which is why you keep speaking and saying a platitude. But you just stay in that holy tension, and then it is the next day or the next week or the card I get in the mail or the time I say, "Can we meet for a coffee?" I don't drink coffee, but can we meet somewhere? And they just want to hear more of my story. I trust that because they're coming back to me.
That's very helpful, the follow-up, because when it comes to sharing our stories, it could be not it can be, it is a very vulnerable place to be in when I am removing my mask and letting you see me, letting you see my pain. What are you gonna do with it? Are you gonna judge me? Are you gonna tell other people about me? If I'm a pastor, if I'm a counselor, if I'm someone who works in this field, are you gonna judge me because I should have my stuff together because I'm in the healing field, but I'm struggling? All of that, right? Is and so for us being vulnerable, if I have unzipped myself in front of you and you see me and the response is handled in a way where it's already kind of leading into what we feared, it can cause us to shut down. And so that follow up, I love that because by me saying, I'm going to pray for you now, and that's just a canned response, is different than me following up later and saying, "Hey, this morning I got you. You were on my prayer list, and let's do this. Let me see how I can support you." So these are some great tips to give our audience.
Mhm, yes.
Yeah. And so, is there any other final remarks that you like to share in terms of lessons that you've learned along your journey of being brave and being bold, and also walking out this healing journey that you think that you could share with our audience today?
So let me read you a page out of my book. I think this why this is so important. It says, "I feel so alone. Shame survives by convincing me I am alone. Whether my pain was caused by my bad decision or whether something tragic happened to me, shame is loud in my head. All of God's promises that I know do not quiet the shame. Shame feels comforting when I feel so helpless, because it is easier to feel shame than it is to feel helpless. Shame is something that I have control over, except shame lies. If I leave shame unchecked, shame will make every decision for my life. I need to not be alone. This doesn't mean to move in with me, it means to regularly check in on me. I know that regularly checking in on me is causing your beautiful day to be touched with my tragedy. Shame will remind me of that. Still do it. Your persistence will win over shame." That's the power of the ministry of presence.
That's good. In the ministry of following up, because
Yeah.
slowly, when that shame is trying to rise, but your love and consistency and non-judgmental spirit, continues to show its face, that shame does not win out, and so that's beautiful.
Thank you. That's my book. Mhm.
Yes, yes. Well, I thank you, Brenda. Thank you for being here and for sharing your story, your brave story. And I would love for you to just let us know, how can we get in touch with you to learn more information about what you do?
Well, I write about this story at bravester.com, and that's where you can purchase my book. The Kindle version of my book is available through Amazon, but my softcover book is through my website, bravester.com. And if I can take a moment here, this is because I wanted to package this book with this card. And if I could read this card to you. So you might see on the cover of my book is this bruised heart that is broken. And there's like matching card that goes with my book. And this is the card you want to receive when you're going through a hard time, or that you want to give to your friend when you're going through a hard time. And it's got the same artwork as the book, but it says, I wish I could take away your pain. I also promise not to tell you that everything happens for a reason. Then you open the card up, and here's the green heart inside. And it says, I'm sorry this is happening to you. I'm not afraid of your pain. I won't have all of the answers, but I will be here for you with coffee, snacks, and my not perfect wisdom. We will find God in this horrible thing together. And so
Woo!
this is so I package this all together because this is what you want to give. I just want to just tease. One of the ladies in my church had a friend in her office just get diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and she noticed there's about a group of about 8 women that were moved the most over this diagnosis that was made public in an office meeting. And she went and purchased 8 books for me and left them all with the book and the card with the women in the office that were surrounding the lady going through the pancreatic cancer, to give them this help, to help them walk her through this entire cancer season. So
Mm.
the book is designed for one for you, but also to do that for when you don't know what to do. Like, she didn't know what to do, so she did that. So that's all at bravester.com. And then my church is at largeststorychurch.com. And I just want to just tease, we're built for teenagers and young adults. We're also built for those who have been through church hurt. We meet on Friday nights, intentionally, because sometimes Sunday mornings have some trauma involved in that. So we're like in the pandemic, why not? We meet over Zoom because it happened in the pandemic, and a lot of my people came in through Zoom. So we're still meeting over Zoom. So it doesn't matter where you are, but if you are hurt and you want to try church again, and you've heard my story and you're like, I think I can maybe trust this lady, I just encourage you to try church with us on Friday nights. You can go to the church website, and there's a form to fill out because we don't make the Zoom link public. And you can fill out and you'll get the Zoom link, and you can just try church again, that I believe will be healing for you.
Amen. Imma have to check out one of your services, Brenda.
Oh, I would love that. So I will send you the Zoom link. Mhm.
Yes, thank you. Please do. And thank you for sharing your story. I've been encouraged by your testimony and the work that you're doing. God bless you, Brenda.
Thank you.
Yes, and I thank all of you for tuning into another episode of Faith on the Journey. I hope you were encouraged by Brenda's story. And remember that, we don't have to be perfect. We don't have the need the perfect answers to support someone who's in pain. All we need to do is just be present, just show up and just love on them. And also, if you are going through a painful situation, I also want you to remember that God is with you. And so be encouraged. Remember what Brenda shared today. And if you know someone who could benefit from hearing from today's podcast, please share this episode with a friend and also leave a 5-star review. I also encourage you to visit our website for counseling resources at faithonthejourney.org. Again, that is faithonthejourney.org. So that's it for this week, family. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you stay encouraged and you keep your faith on the journey. I'll see you soon, family.